Alrighty, and we are live. Welcome everyone to the third event of the Solana Wormhole Hackathon. We have a incredibly exciting fireside chat today between Stani Kulechov and Anatoly Yakovenko. Stani is the founder and CEO of Aave. Anatoly is the co-founder and CEO of Solana. So this is going to be a 30-minute conversation. It may go over a little bit longer, but it'll be similarly formatted how we did the first one, where we're just going to have a nice long conversation about origin of Aave, Aave gachas, Aave version 2, and a few other exciting things. And so for everyone that's watching, I posted a link to the hackathon page in the chat. This evening at 11:59 p.m. PST is the final closure for registration. Hacking will commence tomorrow, and we're at just about 1,000 applicants. So we're excited to have everyone join us for the Wormhole Hackathon. And I think with that, Toly, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you take it away. Have fun.
Cool. Hey, man, it's awesome to have you here. I feel like lending has been one of those really hard to crack problems. You guys have done a remarkable job moving it forward. So kind of I don't know, I'd love to hear how you even ended up in this problem and the origins of Aave.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't understand in the first place how to do lending on chain. I mean, with the pseudo-anonymous nature with the blockchain, and it's kind of funny because pretty much, let's say if you lend to someone else and you don't have any idea who that person is, you probably will not see your money ever again, right? So I tried to figure out back in the days how we could make a loan transaction where the counterparty, the borrower, has an incentive to repay the loan. And pretty much we came up with the model of over-collateralized lending. That was back in the days where ETHLend existed. And what was interesting then is that all of the assets, so many things what I'm now looking at, for example, what is happening in Solana and the all of what this hackathon is all about, practically getting new ideas out and building the ecosystem. Basically, it's exactly what I saw way back ago in the earlier days of Ethereum and DeFi. And there was interesting things such as, for example, many of these assets that we used as a collateral, they actually had very, very low liquidity. So, I mean, besides, let's say, Ethereum you could use. I mean, it's more used as an asset. And kind of we started with this a clunky peer-to-peer model. Let's say one person comes, puts a loan request, and then someone else comes and funds that. And then that person takes the risk of that particular collateral. So that there wasn't any idea of any kind of pool models that we have today. So there was more risk involved. So in that sense, lending was very difficult to start off in the very beginning. But as liquidity started to pile up with things like with Kyber and Uniswap, and of course more liquid ERC20s, actually it become more usable product, and you could create money markets where people deposit and just earn and can withdraw at any time. So lending probably is one of the difficult things to build in DeFi, and that's just because of the risk. There's so many different types of risks, and they actualize when something bad happens. And it doesn't need to necessarily be in crypto. It could just be COVID. It could be the within few days with the elections and everything. If the result might not be what people expect, or that might affect the stock market. It might affect the cryptocurrency market, and then the collateral positions cascade, and then kind of that is the real a battle testing of your protocol. And that is why lending is very complicated.
So I think like there's kind of a interesting evolution. I think you guys went from peer-to-peer lending to almost implementing a margin risk engine for Ethereum.
Yeah,
which is like, to me, like kind of blows my mind, right? That those are the same thing. Did you have that realization, like that this is like margin, that this is like actually like a trading, like more trading oriented than like me borrowing money from you for like a car or something like that?
I think with the collateralization, it's a bit of something that is the nature of it, but like, of course, it's not the same as like going and buying a car and then like without having any kind of like a collateral, or let's say like an asset as a collateral, because like in some ways I think that when you put your name on the table, and you put your reputation, that is in one way a collateral as well. But I mean, everything started just as a small project a few years ago, so I never expected to go this far. Honestly, like even with the Aave protocol launched this beginning of this year, like we expected like few million worth of value locked in the protocol, and we were already thinking like how we will basically build the version 2, and that will be our like thing. Like we will have so many cool features, and like and just like DeFi started to take off, and and flash loans and everything. So it surprised us quite well. And but I'm happy it happened. I mean, being here for a while, I mean, it's really nice to see some some good traction.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's good to see like this time around in the cycle that like really hardworking teams that have been at it for a while, getting traction. I think to me this has basically been the biggest kind of proving point for the space, is that it's no longer based on just a white paper and some hype. It's actually, here's a product and it works, and like it's actually useful, and that's driving it. And this is kind of, to me, feels more like a start to like bigger and better things. I saw this like really cool thing on Twitter, Avagachis, which to me seemed awesome. Like, could you like describe that like a bit?
Yeah, I mean, the Aavegotchi Aavegotchi is a project where practically you have this visual non-fungible tokens, and you have basically collectibles, visual collectibles in the form of ghost, and they're pretty cool. You can get those ghosts by kind of like having this ghost token, and you can buy portals, and each portal has different kinds of ghost, and you have this kind of like a rarity farming going on. But to actually unlock those ghosts, you need to do certain actions, and one of those actions is pretty much based on earning on Aave, which practically means that the better you are at saving funds, so not spending but saving, the quicker you unlock your Aavegotchi. And once you unlock your Aavegotchi, there is basically consumables, and then there's wearables. And this is pretty cool because like you can equip your Aavegotchi, and you can also basically feed your Aavegotchi. So there's different kinds of interesting stuff, and the idea here is kind of like combine a bit the NFTs with DeFi, and also kind of bring more composability into the not just the DeFi ecosystem by connecting this, but also kind of like with Aavegotchi, kind of like kickstart a bit more of this like composability in the NFT world. So I could imagine in the future, let's say someone else could create a new kind of a challenge or new kind of a game, and use those Aavegotchis there. And by the way, this project is not actually made by the Aave team. It's basically made by a project which is in the Aave ecosystem, and they just loved what we were doing. They were hacking in completely different thing in during the one of the hackathons in this year, and then they basically decided to work on the NFTs, and they're very passionate about it. And this is interesting because Aave was like a one project in the Aave ecosystem, and they recently did a DAICO, so it's kind of like a DAOs and ICOs bundled together, where you have actually instant governance for the token holders, and basically they actually raised like I think like 10 or 12 million, and it's just like surrealistic because it's kind of like one project in our ecosystem, and we're super small as well, so it's just like it's just insane, you know, like, and like 6 months ago just hacking in a hackathon.
That's awesome. That's really good to see that kind of like crazy progress. I love like this idea of like building on top of protocols, and I think to me this is like revolutionary in the sense like, you know, old school communication was based on copper wire from you to me around the world, like literally voltage would pass through it, right? Like connected voltage. And like people came up with packet switching where they digitally stored the information and then forwarded it. And that transformed like the internet. That's basically what the internet is based on. And to me, like blockchain is a way for us to do that with money and programs, and like it's not just like open source code. It's literally, here's like a protocol that I no longer like have to maintain and code on, right? And anybody can use. And that all that work that I've done is now like stored and like reusable by other people. It's kind of mind blowing, I think, the amount of human scale this can accomplish. You know, like to me, this seems like very transformational.
And I think it's fascinating because, like, imagine like how many smart contracts they're already deployed, and whatever you're building, like you can interact with everything there, you know. And if you connect with different blockchains, you know, and pass the data from one place to another, like it's impossible to compete. It's really impossible to compete. And DeFi is funny because you look at, let's say, traditional banks or you know, traditional finance and how it's structured today with their software, their technology, and settlement networks. When you have something like this, which is practically Internet of Smart Contracts, you cannot put reverse at all. Like your only choice as a financial institution would have to be to join the network somehow. Practically, the banks become the front ends of the protocols, and that's pretty interesting. Sure, there's regulatory questions and still like a lot of things to solve in terms of privacy and so forth, but I think we'll get there. But just the power of having this internet of smart contract is pretty epic, and not just DeFi, but I could imagine you could build any kind of application like Aave. It's practically not actually DeFi. It's more of gamification and you know basically collectibles. But they use DeFi. I could imagine that they will be using something else, incentivizing some other kind of behavior. You know, students learning even on off chain and putting results on chain, and that way getting basically unlocking their collectibles. So it's mind blowing what's coming up, to be honest.
Do you think that like we will get to a point where we have a reliable reputation on chain? Like a lot of people have been working hard and solving and cracking this nut, and no one I think has yet. Do you think that that's viable, or are we always going to be stuck in this over collateralized world?
Yeah, I think like somehow I feel it's all available, but somehow I feel no one like have done it properly. I don't know, maybe people get tired of like trying, you know, because like you feel like a lot of projects, and you know they do it for a year or two, and you know like putting the credit score into the blockchain, and you know like now we have under collateral loans, and then you don't hear from the projects for a while, and you know. But I think you can connect things. You know, I mean, you could create some sort of like even reputation based in the beginning. Like let's say if I don't repay a debt, you know, that data could go publicly. Maybe not that harsh, but you could definitely connect in different ways. And I think like the missing piece is some sort of like a enforceability, because you still need to enforce stuff in off chain. I mean, even if you are optimistic and think that most of the transactions will not end up in disputes, which is practically what's happens in the real world, right? So you have in every agreement dispute resolution clause, but it never usually activates. It's like small portion of disputes are, contracts, financial transactions.
The optimistic roll-up dispute will probably never trigger, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's might not, but it also might. I mean, like there's always the risk though, and
yep.
I could imagine that. I think a project that could somehow connect these two worlds in the sense that not to be too ambitious, but just creating some simple way of enforcing agreements. And I think we have done it a bit with the credit delegation, in the sense that you could delegate your credit as a depositor in Aave to someone you trust, and you wrap it up with this open law legal agreement. So it's basically you go there, you sign an agreement, put the Ethereum addresses, click a button with MetaMask, and it deploys the smart contract infrastructure that is with the legal agreement. And on the agreement, you already know the counterparty, so you could actually sue him. But if you don't know, that's a different story. So there's some stuff you could already do, and it's actually happening. But scale, I don't know. Like it seems people are
that's really
getting
cool.
tired of
that's really cool. I didn't know about this, but that sounds like kind of an amazing first step at it.
Yeah.
Because like I think a large part of these systems is kind of like scaling what is like typically like a very like long and painful process in the real world, which is like applying for credit or getting a mortgage or anything like that. It just takes like days, and the wires take days, and everything just sucks, right? And it's expensive, and there's a lot of middlemen involved. And if you can eliminate that, but even still have like a signature, right? That's fine. But that's like I think a huge way to like take it from, you and I having to spend like 2 days to do it, to like it taking 2 minutes, and then 100 million people could potentially lend to $1 to like a startup, right, in San Francisco that needs that funding, right, or something like that, right? Like to me, like the possibilities are kind of awesome and crazy.
Yeah, I think also we complicate things a lot. I mean, in real life, there is many things that like are somehow simplified in the sense that, let's say, if you have like disputes, there is agreements, this so-called like New York Convention that if you get a arbitration kind of like award, you could enforce it in like 180 countries with that one single kind of like a reward or like award, like a judgment. And I think we just overcomplicate things. We try to solve every person's problems like in one like kind of like user flow, and that's where things like break. I think those projects that are now looking into like connecting the credit scoring real life and making like that kind of like lending facility just should pick one type of like like user flow, let's say, like something very simple that serves one particular purpose. And this is what happens in DeFi as well. Like if you see like things that will be built on this hackathon or in general, they solve like one particular like economical function. You don't need to build everything in the same protocol.
Yeah, and that's kind of like speaks well to me, like just kind of as a software engineer, I kind of grew up in the Unix world where you wanted to build very small programs that did one thing, and you pipe them together, right? That kind of composability was like beautiful to learn as like an early engineer, to kind of finally understand that you don't have to do everything in one giant program. That like things can be simple, and those simple things like are easier to test. And I see this in DeFi now, and it's kind of really cool to watch. Um, do you think like the lending side of it like is going to be like, to me, like lending seems like a very useful tool that is like just part of finance in everyday life, and that to me seems like a almost bigger opportunity than just like any like layer ones and on their own, right? Like it's connecting people with capital to other people that need it. Do you guys see like it being tied to any single chain? Like, I mean, I understand Ethereum has this tremendous kind of like ecosystem and moat right now that's really hard to break, but I think the use case itself is bigger than Ethereum in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think like many of the use cases will be bigger than Ethereum, because I mean, or any other chain, because it's like these chains are bringing security, but many of the use cases are actually kind of like a bigger than that. Of course, depends how you calculate, but if you calculate in terms of like, let's say, capital allocation, if the networks are secured by capital as well, and I believe finance in general is bigger than a one particular network securing it, and that might be even problematic. I mean, if you have a like a you're securing something that might even have more value, and this kind of situations might even happen, and kind of like I think also it's a problem, like if you have application in one particular network, compared if you could actually spread that and diversify the networks that you have, the liquidity, and also I think that different kinds of networks, they will provide different kinds of value for different finance, different lending especially, and I just think like if it goes that more and more lending instruments will be in DeFi, or I even see that many use cases where liquidity is pulled from DeFi, with, for example, with credit delegation. It's a way for traditional financial institutions draw basically stable coins with a legal agreement from, let's say, could there could be a DAO that accepts who could be a borrower from credit delegations, and who could actually draw those credit lines. And if you can get, let's say, stable coins at 1.5% from DeFi, compared to raising bonds or taking private placements at higher rate, that is a good source of liquidity. And you could take that liquidity, convert it to fiat, and actually use it in traditional finance. And someone might actually use partly DeFi source liquidity in buying property or house or whatnot. So I think like, and if you have this demand taking out of DeFi, there will be supply, because it pressures the rates, which means that more liquidity will go into DeFi and the lending facilities. And what happens is actually that you have this like a positive cycle, where you have this global liquidity pools on different kinds of networks, which are sucking liquidity, and then traditional finance is sucking it out there, and that will be like a magnitude where we will see that maybe actually the lending will be a very big thing if the liquidity will be sourced from DeFi. So the answer is yes. So I think I think so.
I'm the other part that's kind of been fascinating for me to watch is this like weird kind of fight between capital efficiency, right? Like, because with over collateralized loans, actually, if you deposit a bunch of assets into Aave, but also the fact that a lot of these operations are tokenized themselves, that instead of just kind of like putting my money in a bank, I put money into something that gives me that a wrapper token that represents my deposit there, which is in itself fungible and is in itself capital, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you like? It's hard to understand like the implications of this, but to me it seems like we're building something that is capital efficient because all these tokens are tradable in value. We just need bigger marketplaces. Like we haven't like scaled the marketplaces to support this massive amount of kind of like long tail of assets to cross.
Yeah, I mean, I think this like tokenization of various positions is it brings more efficiency. I mean, especially like when we think about like over collateralized lending, for sure there's a challenge that practically in the sense that you have to put more capital. I mean, you're putting your long position at stake. But also, I mean, if you deposit, you get this. Let's say in Aave, you get this A tokens, and it's practically claimable for the underlying in that sense. And you could deposit the A token to somewhere else. I mean, there was like one hackathon project that did this kind of like a yield curve. So you deposit A tokens into another contract, and then you mint another token, and then you sell that token to someone else at a discount, and then practically you earn still from your A tokens until the maturity. But then the sold token, you got basically liquidity, and then you can take that liquidity and put it someone else. It's like an ongoing circle of efficiency that you can optimize. And the challenge is like how much you can optimize, because there's two things that I'm worried about. One is the systemic smart contract risk, in the sense that when we have so many layers of smart contracts and they do operate, but if something is found in those smart contracts, bugs or economical exploitable scenarios, that's very risky. And also like the fact that when we have this kind of like tokenization and unwinding from those positions might be tricky as well, because when you deposit into Aave, for example, that's kind of like the base layer for liquidity, and that basically means that if you have a borrow position and you don't have enough value, it might be liquidated, and all this like cascading positions. This is something I'm worried like on a daily basis, because like I personally, like when I look at, let's say, like DeFi pools, and I see like that there's like 11-12 billion worth of value, and I'm thinking like what will happen if there will be something big, and
How much of it is recursive?
yeah, and that as well, So it's also like it's a value loop. We call it a value loop.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
think
scary,
it's I think it's scary, but also this happens in the real world, and it is impenetrable to us. To like the smartest people in the world, engineers cannot understand how this stuff works in finance, because it is wrapped in so much like legalese and like tribal knowledge and like hidden, right? Like because like it seems like those banks don't want us to know this, but now this is open and we can actually Monte Carlo simulation and then see where like what are the paint like where does this stuff like actually fall over. Like I think that's kind of like the huge advantage of building of open finance.
Yeah, I think the what I like about DeFi that kind of like keeps me like enthusiastic is that you can see everything, like in the sense that there is so much transparency, and this transparency means that all the contracts, all the transactions are auditable by anyone. In one way, we kind of lose a lot of privacy, in the sense that even though these transactions are pseudo-anonymous, they're still attributable to people, and you could you could kind of like connect the dots. So it's an issue, but as a default, having this kind of like a transparency in public blockchains, it really brings value, and it makes an environment where you have to think before you you do a transaction in Ethereum, because like it will be actual history book. People can go back years from now and look in the back that, oh, this kind of stuff happened, and analyze stuff, which is good. But in the sense that when you look at traditional finance and you can't see anything, and if you are a regulator and you look at different kinds of books and settlement networks, there's a way of like, there's different accounting rules and they bring a lot of flexibility, but in DeFi everything has to settle in a specific way, and there's like quite narrow rules. I mean, with everything, block size and so forth. So I think public blockchains are very good as default, and privacy is something that should be added, though, of course. But this is what difference from the traditional finance, and I think this is also why maybe DeFi will not be ever like a kind of like a, it might not get a bad stigma. And I think the same thing with let's say even Bitcoin. I mean, there used to be the narrative that criminals use Bitcoin. It's very difficult to make that argument these days, and public transactions compared to, let's say, completely private coins, and they can't get rid of that stigma.
Yep. I think for DeFi specifically, I think the openness of it is a huge advantage. Part of the reason like why I was so focused on trading with Solana was just like my experience trying to trade on like, I wasn't like trading a lot, just like a little bit, but I never had enough data, and all this data was like opaque and hidden, like you could never really get like the data that like CME has or New York Stock Exchange, because they want to charge you a lot for it, and even to pay them you have to like pass a lot of hoops, right? Which is unfair, right? It's just unfair, right? Like I don't know how else to call it. It seems like very insidery, and like having these open markets, I think, is a way to like equalize the world in a lot of ways.
And I think it brings new ideas, because let's say if there's traders, trading on Solana, and there's like high frequency trading going on, they can basically, they have all the data, they can analyze it and basically make more efficient strategies. Or if it's not even trading, it might be just another kind of transactions. You could look some patterns and see, okay, this could be like, I see this happening all the time, and maybe this could be improved by creating a smart contract that does some particular function. So definitely, I'm also kind of eager to see like what in this hackathon will actually what kind of applications there will be, because it's kind of, we're in a unique position in the sense that you could actually hack something. You can create pretty interesting applications, and you can have speed. And I'm really curious to see what kind of things people come up with, because this hasn't happened quite often. Or maybe I'm being like completely like not aware of, but basically like it's completely different scale.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited too. I don't know if you saw that like Serum folks published the swap, the project serum.com, which is a pretty fast implementation of a token swap. And it looks and feels like a centralized application, like a AWS hosted app, like, which is not, it's like boring. It's almost boring, right? like okay, I don't have to like wait like, minutes for something to happen. So in a lot of ways, like I'm excited about the boring stuff because it like normalizes the space, right? It kind of makes it less cryptic and less weird. Do you like are you guys thinking about branching out from lending, or is this like or or lending is like a big enough problem for Aave, like as a single focus point.
It is.
You know,
It
the
is.
$2 trillion of is the $2 trillion of global lending. Is that a big enough challenge?
It feels big. I mean, uh, some. I mean, we do have a lot of ideas, and kind of like we have a lot of brainstorming sessions and come up with all kinds of things that you could build, but we usually give them away in hackathons. Like we try to give away as much as possible, especially if it's stuff that could be built on Aave. It strengthens our ecosystem, and we have a lot of fun. But kind of like it's really difficult to expand because in terms of product offerings, and because there's so much things to do in the current protocol. There's new money markets that will be opened, and also kind of like besides that, like different kinds of asset listings and a lot of risk involved. And I think like the risk side is the most burdensome. It's actually not the development. Of course, you need to develop it very securely. But for us, what we have seen, like the economical risk modeling and risk assessment, that's the kind of like a challenging part, because like you kind of have to add assets or create markets in a way that you prepare for the worst, and that is the challenge, because let's say when there's a lot of upside, like there's a market which is going up, and there's a lot of things happening, there's a lot of hype going on, and you still have to think like that the market might go down and model it that way. It's very burdensome and challenging, and for us there is quite a lot of things. But I think what happens with Aave is, and with the protocol, is that it will open up in the sense that anyone can contribute to it, like in the very core. So that will help like other people to contribute and build things and build additional stuff in the ecosystem and get grants. We already have grants that we give. I think we have given like over 60 or 70 grants, but basically they can request themselves from the DAO and build things. And that is pretty cool. You could actually request in the future, for example, from the DAO to build something related to Aave on for example, Solana. So that's the kind of like a thing, and that we even don't know where it will go. And I like it that way. I mean, because like for me, it's already like a lot of work in the sense, and I will be happy if there's a bunch of developers like continuing all directions and trying things out and building things. Like
Yeah,
honestly, I would.
If anyone is if anyone is listening, we will match that grant from Aave to build anything on Solana for sure. Like I
nice.
think that's another bit like I grew up in like the 90s as an engineer, like teenager in the 90s, coding on like trying to hack Linux together. And I remember this huge fight between open source like Linux folks and Microsoft and SCO and IBM and all this craziness. And like it's awesome to see that all of that is forgotten, that like open source is the only way to build software, and like there's so much encouragement to go like reuse and build stuff in the open, like through grants. So this is like it's just like kind of been like, I think one of the biggest beneficiaries of like innovation has been like from crypto has been just open source development has like a really good model now. Like you can go build a protocol. If you can come up with like a brand new financial like structure, you can actually like build open source code and have a reasonable standard of living, right? Like it's not like no longer like a hobbyist job, like in the dark.
Yeah. I mean, like when we are thinking like how we want to see like the future of development, we try to look actually, like the Bitcoin core development, but maybe even more like how Linux has evolved and the contributors to Linux, and the fascinating part that like the early contributors are still contributing, and there's interesting like distributions of Linux and still and different models. Like I think that is the quite optimal thing. And interestingly, I mean, Linux, it's the most used operating system. I mean, probably if they would have crypto economics, maybe it will be the most popular desktop. I mean, people will put more effort to build better user experiences, and like incentives are.
All right, by 2030, a Linux distribution will ICO, right? Linux and desktop will have an ICO. That's my favorite prediction.
You'll have some sort of like a CPU mining there or whatnot. No, but it's a beautiful comparison, and kind of like I also agree that you don't say this kind of like proprietary technology versus open source. I think, for example, Hashgraph is proprietary technology, and I haven't seen it going anywhere. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, because I mean, and also I don't even know if there's any other way to build on public blockchains in a way, because smart contracts talk with each other. So if they interact with each other, I mean, there has to be like waived rights to some extent. I don't know, like but yeah.
I think in more specifically, like the first point that you mentioned, when you have these recursive value loops, you need to actually know the contract that you're using, because if you can't analyze it, how can you make any trust assumptions about the value that it's locking? Like it becomes like, I think like if those systems are not open, I think you lose all of this like composability that we have across DeFi. Like that to me is like a really frightening part.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at contract where you you basically don't see any like verification, and it's just putting money there. It's just like it's completely kind of like you will never know what's going to happen. I don't think it can work like that. Even like let's say if there is if Aave would have closed contracts, I don't think anyone will build on Aave. It's just it's too risky. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think like part of the kind of the hack with open source is you need to kind of like convince people to use your code. It's not just like you build it and people will use it, like.
Yeah. But yeah, and and the cool part is that people can just fix small problems, because once you fix small problem, you can scale it. Like you can scale it as many users there is in DeFi. The irony, of course, here is that DeFi doesn't have many users, right? But the thing is that if this thing scale, the situation will be completely different. If everyone who needs finance will actually consume DeFi, you just need to solve like one single thing. You will be like the guy who invented the like button, and like you have the biggest product out there.
Part of the joy of COVID development or being a COVID startup founder is you get your kids right next with you. Did you come into the space as an engineer or as like a finance guy?
Actually, I build on Web2, basically financial applications, more working capital. But this was like when I was in my teen years and early 20s. And then I decided to actually study law. And when I was studying law in my last years, I practically was researching about contracts, automatization, and like actually more about execution and how you could create new innovative ways of kind of self-enforcement. And I stumbled upon on smart contracts, and that's something that got me into the space. And then I wanted to build something related, like a legal tech, but then somehow like I went back to like doing financial applications. It's just something, when you see like yields and interest rates, and it's just like for me, that's like super addictive in the sense that, I just, I just want to make products that people like, they get yields. I don't know why, but it's just very addictive to me.
That's funny. I spend most of my day looking at like Grafana dashboards and like looking for milliseconds to optimize, and so I guess to each his own, right? Like that's pretty funny. I mean, that's fascinating that you like started like looking into law first, because I think that like the way that you framed it, that you're looking for enforceable structures, is like a really good way to describe smart contracts. That like these are actually like automatically enforceable, like they're enforced by the code, right? And
Yeah.
that's so different from like law and like how we build like how we have these lending agreements that have to have like a lawsuit and like
Yeah.
like at the end of it, right? Like that's the only threat. That's that like actually like I wonder if like if we have like 200-300 million people on one chain, like it seems like it's possible for those structures in the broader sense to form just within that community. Like if that community gets big enough, we essentially, I think, do discover reputation, right, and credit scores just from within. Like to me, it seems like
Yeah.
this is almost like those folks that are like you said, like trying this stuff for a year and giving up. They're just too early,
Yeah, I think I think one example even is that, I mean, people use different kind of name services, and also, let's say you have various NFTs, and you collect stuff. You kind of have like, I will not even say portfolio, because they might have value because you and other people value, and then they might be traded, and that is why they have value. But I could imagine, like, let's say if I have like 80-90 different NFTs, some are important to me, some are less, might be even valuable there, that doesn't matter. Then I have different kinds of like DAO memberships, and those DAO membership might be like, let's say they're not like put 15 Ether here and you get a DAO membership and now you can vote stuff, but it could be just like you're part of the DAO because you are part of, let's say, a community somewhere in Ohio, let's say, and then you have a bunch of other things in your so-called like profile portfolio. And maybe if you lock them that you can't move from your address, maybe that's a way you could actually, it becomes some sort of like a credit, not a social credit, but something in between that. And what I like about this thing is that there's so much subjective value. It's not about like, let's say you have 10,000 worth of tokens there, and you get a 5,000 loan, but it might be like most of the stuff is worthless for everyone else, but they're worth for you, and you don't want to get rid of them in that sense. So these communities are important in that way.
My thoughts were that like there's like the Sybil problem right now with Web2, where I can kind of join like every Reddit community and every Facebook group, but I can't do the same thing with tokens, right? Like I actually have to go buy them. So there's like almost like a proof of work kind of like I had to go work and get money, right? There's a proof of work Sybil resistance for tokens for that membership. So like me picking a particular set of groups is like me actually betting on those communities.
Yeah, and some of them, like the work can be like, I mean, something like easy, like introduce yourself, or like I don't know, there could be many things. So I think the community aspect is something that will grow even more than finance, because like people need finance in various things, but the actual community interaction is more interesting. I could imagine that of this hackathon we'll see some of like implementation of some sort of like a messaging or various things where you need like high frequency, because it's not just about trading. There's a bunch of other examples, and it's good. Like I think like what's important for let's say Solana is that like the projects or the hacks, they will kind of like represent the culture and the community, and that is like what will be important and drives traction and interest and curiosity. And that is why when I said that this is probably the first time when something like this is happening, where people are hacking basically blockchain related hacks with high frequency on this scale is something that's is going to be very, very different than other hackathons that I have seen or judged or participated in.
Cool. Yeah, I'm super excited to see what happens. Well, we're basically getting to the end of the hour. I want to give you a chance to talk about like V2 and what that looks like. You mentioned that you guys were betting that that's going to be like the biggest thing for Aave, and I'm excited to actually know like what are the features that you guys are shipped.
Absolutely. So what's interesting about V2 is it becomes transactional in the sense that very like fluid. Like now the thing is that when you deposit into Aave, let's say DAI to earn interest, if you want to earn, let's say you make a decision, I want to actually earn on USDT because of higher yield or different risk profile. And you never know when that has emergency shutdown. Just kidding, but basically you would have to withdraw, sell the DAI, buy USDT, and put it in back to Aave, and now you could basically do one click, and that happens on the background. So basically there will be a flash loan, takes the position, sells it, and buys the new position. And well, actually it's a token swap. But for example, the same with the loan position, you could swap your borrow rate the same way. And also you can swap your collateral. Essentially, let's say you borrowed USDC, you have ETH collateral there. You could actually, next block, you could change it to, let's say, USDC collateral. You can change it to Aave collateral, Link collateral, whatnot. And actually you have a collateral trading there. And you can also close your loan position with a collateral. And also the amount of gas optimization we have done, we reduced like half of the gas already. So and that will probably not save us, but still, like interesting here is that like you can shuffle your positions very easily as an end user. And if you build on top of Aave, you can also use this functionality. So in essence, like that becomes pretty. There's a bunch of other cool stuff, like private markets. So you could actually create a completely different market, have permissioned market, and do your own thing. But I'm most fascinated about this like fluidness, and depth positions will be tokenized. Like the list is very long, but those are like the main things.
I think I kind of get what you're saying, which is tokenizing every aspect of the lending part.
Yeah.
And that to me is like so Unixy, because I think like the token is like the pipe operator in Unix, and it's awesome to like kind of think of it that way. Can we like actually make everything fungible and like kind of like make all these parts like pipes, right? Like to me, these are pipes, right? Stuff goes in on one end, stuff comes out on the other end, and if you can like start plugging them together, I think that's where magic happens. That's kind of like the true form of composability. So that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're happy when this gets out. We're working basically morning to evening. Been doing that too long now, but I mean, once we get it, it will be pretty cool release.
Cool. That's cool. Well, thank you so much for being out here. I hope this conversation inspired the folks that are listening, and they can kind of start thinking about like build small, simple things that you can ship. That's my advice. I don't know. Do you have any advice for folks?
Yeah, and like build anything, like it doesn't has to be DeFi. I'm doing DeFi because I've been like interested in finance, but build anything, you can use DeFi as a way to empower your thing, and that's exactly what I would say as well. I mean, practically building one thing very well securely is the way to go.
Awesome. I don't.
Cool. I think we're just about at time. We said we were going to do 30 minutes, and we still pulled in the hour. So thank you, Stani, for the time. Of course, thank you, Toly. We have two more events going on tomorrow. We have a 10 a.m. fireside chat with Robert Leshner, who is the CEO and founder of Compound, and then we actually have the future of DeFi, where we have a handful of individuals, including you, Stani. I believe it's your final event with us, three in a row, where we're going to just take a look at the next wave of decentralized finance. And so I will post registration links for both of those events in the chat. And it looked like there were a few questions. I don't know if you had a chance. Danny, it looks like someone was curious about when Aave Fiat will be available. I don't know if you want to tackle that one real quick before we jumped off.
Aave Fiat. Well, you can actually deposit. There is a couple of stuff like basically you could use Ramp Network and then we have something else as well where you can you can basically go from fiat to deposits. But I guess it's also a question about payments accounts, which we have a electronic money license that we received. That is something we're working beginning of this next year, so it takes a bit time. So the version 2 is now on, and I think it's version 2 is weeks away, not far.
There you go. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you as always for your time. This was an incredible talk, and thank you to everyone who attended. So,
thanks everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care all.